Am I up? Backstage for main event. All right, I'm here. Welcome everyone. Um, Great, I am live. Well, I want to thank everybody for being here today. The last year has been pretty weird. Almost exactly a year ago, Gavin Newsom issued a shelter-in-place order for all 40 million residents of the state of California. And I think the physical, financial, and emotional toll of the last 12 months has been really devastating. And for some of us, there were times that just getting out of bed every day was a struggle. Most of us have been separated from our families and friends. Many of our most vulnerable communities have been rent with death and racism and violence. For all of us, it has been a year of uncertainty in our institutions. But the last year has also given us opportunities for growth and made us stronger than ever before. We developed a vaccine in a time so short that even 10 years ago, it would have been inconceivable. And people of every background rose up together in cities across our country to push back against the systemic violence, racism, and injustice that robs us all of our humanity. The fast-moving apocalypse of COVID has not forestalled the slow-moving apocalypse of climate change. But in spite of the difficulties that the last year has thrown at all of us, we continue to keep our eyes on the horizon. Being here today means that you have overcome the challenges of the present and are ready once again to take on the challenges of the future. And you are all to be commended for your perseverance and grit. Over the next 20 years, as we attack the existential threats posed to our friends, neighbors, and our world by climate change, we will need that spirit more than ever. So, in 2019, I attended PyCon, the Python Developers Conference in Cleveland. And I presented the work that we had been doing for the last several years at Kairos Aerospace on detecting and mitigating methane emissions. Elena Berman is our Chief Science Officer, and she will be telling you more about the importance of that work later today. I was overwhelmed by the excitement that I saw from the community after that talk, but I was also frustrated. People asked me over and over again, I want to help. What can I do to help fight climate change? I didn't have any ready answers, and it troubled me. As anyone who has ever tried to start up a company knows, hiring is by far the hardest part. Finding the right people with the right skills in the right places. And here were like a dozen talented, enthusiastic engineers asking to put their skills to better use for a more just, better world. And all I could think to tell them was, call your senator. I wanted to find a better answer to the question, how can I help? Climate change is the most daunting challenge humanity has ever faced. It threatens the lives of hundreds of millions, if not billions of people. But the climate crisis is not a single threat. It is hundreds of individual problems spread across dozens of facets of our society. Transportation, agriculture, housing, industrial processes, and energy, just to name a few. Even for experts in any one field, understanding what is happening across other fields is difficult. How much harder is it for a web developer or a mechanical engineer or an MBA to look at the panoply of emerging technologies and companies and to even know where to start? Not only that, but climate tech companies have a number of unique challenges in this respect, above and beyond other startups. They're capital intensive, they require many years of research and development, and they usually require highly specific domain expertise. Overhead costs are high. It's difficult for small companies to hire effectively and efficiently, and even harder to do so in a way that promotes diversity and inclusivity. This last part is because hiring in most tech companies happens via referral through friends or colleagues, and these mechanisms reinforce existing biases and power structures. I was determined to figure out how to help startups reach the talent that they needed to grow. Here was a problem I understood, it had clear demand, and could actually have an impact. I am a firm believer in capitalism and the power of small businesses to make a huge impact. That is not to say that I believe that capitalism are right or good in an abstract way. As the great sage of my generation, Ferris Bueller, once said, a person should not believe in an ism. They should believe in themselves. What I believe, rather, is that unless we plan to overthrow global capitalism in the next 20 years, we must work from within it. And the way to make capitalism work for good is to find a way to get people to pay you to fix problems and then hire the right people to do it. Finding the engineers to undertake the enormous task of transforming every aspect of our society is not just important, it is a moral responsibility to our children to vouchsafe for them a world that does not build its future prosperity on the suffering of millions. We decided to call our small contribution to this enormous problem the Climate Tech Action Network, or CTAN. Over the last year, CTAN has engaged over 100 people in our climate tech mentorship program, helping tech workers navigate the complex terrain of climate tech, and to try to answer the question, how can I help? And today's conference is part of CTAN's larger mission of education and engagement around climate tech that we hope will draw more talented engineers and scientists into the fight. Our vision for CTAN over the next several years is to become not just a place to find a job, but a place for a community of engineers, scientists, and entrepreneurs to come together and discuss the most important problems we will ever face. Which of the dozens of paths do we take to try to save our planet? Who will pay the costs? And how do we pay them without impoverishing others around the globe? We should not deceive ourselves that climate change is purely a technical challenge. It poses moral questions of unfathomable scale at every turn. And I quote, who shall live and who shall die? Who by famine and who by thirst? Who shall have rest and who shall wander? Who shall become rich and who shall become impoverished? These words were written by Rabbi Amnon of Mainz when considering the cosmic powers that seem to shape our world. These are questions that we as a society will answer by our action or inaction. And almost every day, I am terrified by just how little I can do. And I wonder if I can possibly make a difference. But then I remember about the words of a different teacher, Rabbi Tarfon, who considered the monumental task of tikkun olam, or fixing the world. The ancient Jewish mystics believed that the light of our universe was formed when one of the vessels carrying God's infinite light broke, and that our purpose in the world is to gather up this light and fix what was broken. By comparison, gathering up all the CO2 of the last 100 years may turn out to be simple. But of this task of cosmically scaled world fixing, Rabbi Tarfon said, it is not your responsibility to finish the work, but neither are you at liberty to abstain from it. Now, as a way of tempering those embarrassingly bombastic remarks, I would like to add that I am exceedingly humbled that we have been able to assemble such a remarkable group of technology leaders here today. People who are doing the difficult work, taking the big risks, making the difficult choices. They are among the most talented and brilliant people I've ever had the privilege to know. And I am especially excited to have Saul Griffiths here to speak to us today about his work, which I think is some of the most important, practical, and importantly achievable work on climate change being carried out today in our community. I also want to thank our staff, Sarah Mayer and Christine Danner. They have tirelessly worked very hard over the last several months to bring this conference to fruition. And finally, but not lastly, lastly but not least importantly, I want to offer my thanks to my friends and colleagues at Kairos Aerospace, who are primary funders of CTAN's mission and who gave me the vote of confidence, the time, and the money to undertake this project. I would especially like to thank the Kairos executive team, Brian Jones, Ari Gesher, Steve Daker, and of course, Elena Berman, who's speaking today. Every single one of them has contributed individually to CTAN with their time, their counsel, and then their faith that I would use the opportunities that they have given me to do something worthwhile, or at least not run off with the money. So with that, I want to turn the conference back over to our MC and fearless leader, Sarah Mayer, who is going to introduce our next speakers starting at 9:30. Thank you.